Sir, this lounge is for real customers only. The receptionist snapped, not even glancing twice at the elderly man sitting quietly by the coffee machine. At 76, Raymond Ellis didn't look like much, just an old veteran in a flannel shirt and polished boots. Holding his hands calmly in his lap, he had come to the dealership with one goal: to finally buy a used car, something reliable to get him to his doctor's appointments. But after 40 long minutes, not a single salesman had acknowledged him. They laughed, whispered, and assumed he was wasting their time, until the doors burst open. A sharp voice echoed through the showroom: Sergeant Raymond Ellis. All heads turned. Striding in was Colonel Anthony Mays, Raymond's former commanding officer in Vietnam, now a powerful businessman with the authority to change everything. And that's exactly what he did. In the minutes that followed, careers were questioned, ownership was transferred, and respect was restored. Because the man they ignored, he was the same man who had once dragged Colonel Mays out of enemy fire with a bullet in his shoulder, and who had never once asked for recognition. They saw just an old man, but they forgot. Heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes, they're just waiting quietly to be seen. To the staff at the dealership, Raymond Ellis was just another old man in worn boots and a flannel shirt, likely wasting time and sipping free coffee. What they couldn't see, what they didn't bother to ask, was that this quiet figure had once been the reason dozens of soldiers made it home alive. Raymond had served in the UK, some Army Signal Corps during the Vietnam War, specializing in battlefield communications. When transmissions failed, lives were lost. But when Raymond was behind the radio, his calm under fire meant convoys reached safety. Medevac helicopters landed on time, and outposts held until reinforcements arrived. His hands didn't just operate machines. They moved with purpose that carried the weight of survival. But like many veterans of his generation, he never boasted about it. After retiring, he returned to a quiet life, modest home, volunteer work at the VFW, and a garage where he still repaired radios for neighbors. Every Tuesday, he helped younger vets navigate the confusing maze of benefits paperwork. Not because he had to, because he knew what it was like to be forgotten. That day at the dealership wasn't the first time he'd been ignored, but it cut deeper than most. Raymond had saved for years to buy that car, something dependable to get him to medical appointments in the grocery store in winter. He arrived with dignity, patience, and a lifetime of service behind him. No one saw it. No one until Colonel Anthony Mays walked in. The same man whose life Raymond had once saved in the jungle. The same man who, upon realizing what had happened, bought the dealership on the spot and reminded the room that sometimes the quietest man carries the loudest legacy. They saw a customer. Colonel Mays saw a brother in arms, and the world saw a man whose value was never in what he wore, but in what he gave. While others laughed and dismissed the old man in the corner, Greg Palmer couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. He was the newest salesman on the floor, young, still in training, still figuring out where confidence ended and arrogance began. At first, he had followed the lead of the others. Ignore the guy by the coffee machine. Assume he wasn't serious. Focus on the real customers in tailored suits. But the longer he watched, the more uncomfortable he became. The man Raymond Ellis wasn't lost or confused. He was patient, composed, sitting like someone who had spent a lifetime waiting in harder places for far more important reasons. When Colonel Anthony Mays strode through the door and addressed the old man by name, calling him Sergeant, everything in Greg's chest sank. The realization hit like a slap. We didn't just ignore him, we erased him. And yet, despite the humiliation, Raymond had stayed calm. Even when offered any car on the lot, he remained humble, asking only for something reliable. It wasn't what he received that changed Greg, it was how he responded. Without bitterness, without ego. So when Colonel Mays asked who would assist Raymond in finding his car, Greg stepped forward, not because it was good for business, because it was the right thing to do. From that day on, Greg made it a point to greet every customer personally, especially the quiet ones, especially the elderly. He later told a friend, "I almost walked past the kind of man we should all be learning from." Never again. And in that decision, in that moment of growth, Greg proved that respect isn't just taught. Sometimes it's chosen. After the shock of that afternoon faded and the colonel's SUV disappeared into the distance, something shifted in the air, not just inside the dealership, but across the entire town. For years, people like Raymond Ellis had been quietly living among them, veterans, servants, builders of peace who asked for nothing but dignity, and for years, many had looked past them. Until that day, when one man's 40 minutes of patience was met with 15 seconds of justice, and the whole world took notice. The story spread fast. Veteran ignored at dealership, former commander returns and buys the place. Local news picked it up. Then veteran groups shared it. Before nightfall, Raymond's name was being whispered with reverence. People who once walked past him at the grocery store now stopped to shake his hand. Young men took off their baseball caps when he entered a room. Children asked their parents, "Who is Sergeant Ellis?" But the real change happened within the walls of the dealership. The once dismissive receptionist, now reassigned to customer relations training, began greeting every guest with a respect she hadn't known she lacked. Employees no longer judged by shoes or speech. They listened. They learned. A week later, a new sign was installed above the door. Ellis and Mays Motors, built on respect. Inside, behind the reception desk, a quote in bold bronze letters caught the morning light. No voice unheard. It was more than a slogan. It was a reminder. That day, a community learned that the way you treat someone when no one's watching speaks louder than any title or uniform ever could. And thanks to Raymond's quiet example, they would never forget it. What makes a man worthy of respect? Is it his clothes? His wallet? The way he talks when he walks through the door? If you asked Raymond Ellis, he wouldn't answer with words. He'd answer with presence, quiet, composed, and steady. The kind of presence that doesn't demand attention, but commands it. After 40 minutes of being ignored in a dealership lobby, he didn't storm out. He didn't call anyone names. He simply waited with patience that had been tested far more harshly on foreign battlefields. And when his former commander, Colonel Anthony Mays, walked in and restored the respect Raymond had earned decades ago, the message was clear. Respect isn't given to the loudest. It belongs to those who've earned it quietly. Even after the dealership changed hands, even after the public apology and the free vehicle, Raymond remained humble. He asked for nothing fancy, just something reliable. He smiled, he nodded, and he moved on, not bitter, not boastful. And in that, he taught everyone watching something no seminar or training manual ever could. That dignity isn't in how you demand recognition, but in how you carry yourself when no one seems to be looking. That real strength is calm. That true leadership is knowing when to act and when to just stand your ground. Raymond didn't need a title. He didn't need a stage. All he needed was one moment in 5 words from someone who remembered to remind an entire nation that some heroes never stop serving. They just wait for us to notice. The morning after the story broke, Raymond Ellis pulled into the dealership parking lot, this time behind the wheel of a brand new truck, gifted by the very place that had once dismissed him. The same entrance, the same coffee machine. But everything else had changed. Every employee stood to greet him, not out of fear, but out of genuine respect. Greg, the young salesman who had stepped up the day before, approached him with a steaming cup of coffee. 1 cream, 1 sugar, right? Sir, I asked around. Raymond chuckled, the lines around his eyes softening. Someone's been paying attention. From behind the new reception desk, the young woman who had once turned him away now gave a quiet nod, humility replacing the disdain she once wore. And above her, bold bronze letters on the wall read the words that Raymond had once whispered on a battlefield. And again, just days earlier, no voice unheard. The lesson is simple but powerful. Never judge a person by what they wear, how old they are, or how quietly they sit. Because behind tired eyes and weathered hands may live stories of sacrifice, courage, and quiet greatness. In a world that moves fast, let's slow down long enough to listen. Because some heroes aren't loud. They're just waiting to be seen. If this story touched you, share a comment below for the veterans in your life. And if you believe respect should come before assumptions, subscribe to our channel for more stories that restore faith in honor, humility, and everyday heroes. Because sometimes all it takes is one person finally being heard